A broke teenager gave away his last $5 to a stranger at midnight. Within 48 hours, a CEO had placed his name on a fortune. That teenager is Daniel Brooks, 17 years old. He isn't the kind of boy who draws attention, the kind of kid people pass by without a glance, except when they need someone to cover a shift, clean a spill, or carry boxes too heavy for themselves. He's lean, pale from too many late nights, with a school jacket whose blue has faded to gray. It is past midnight at the city terminal. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. Rainwater seeps through the cracked ceiling tiles, dripping into buckets on the floor. The loudspeaker calls out departure times no one listens to. Travelers huddle in coats, eyes fixed on their phones. In this crowded place, Daniel might as well be invisible. Earlier tonight, he finished his part-time shift mopping corridors. He kept his head down, but not enough to avoid the comments. "Don't trip on those shoes, Brooks," one coworker smirked, eyes locked on the frayed sides of Daniel's sneakers. Another nudged him when he passed, laughing under his breath. He swallowed the sting, pressed the mop harder into the tile, and finished the work without a word. They once needed him. He was the kid who never missed a shift, who covered when others didn't show. But now that same reliability made him a target. Easy to dismiss, easier to mock. In the terminal, the cashier leans on her counter. Daniel places coins, counted carefully, onto the scratched glass. Her sigh is louder than necessary. Tap, tap, the pen against the desk as if his time isn't worth hers. She slides the ticket across without looking at him. The security guard, bored and heavy-eyed, waves through three men in suits with quick nods. But when Daniel steps forward, the guard stops him. "Open the bag." The voice is flat. Daniel obeys, pulling out his folded work uniform. The guard rifles through without interest, then waves him off. Another reminder. He doesn't belong. $5 remain in his pocket. A single bill, damp at the corner from the rain. To most, nothing. To him, survival. That bill means he can ride the bus back home, 3 stops across the river, instead of walking hours in soaked shoes. It means, maybe, if the bakery hasn't closed yet, he can buy bread for his grandmother's breakfast. He runs his thumb over the crease in the bill, folding it again, as though doubling it might make it more than at Island. At 17, Daniel lives by counting every cent. His grandmother's pension barely covers rent. Medicine costs more than they admit to each other. He skips meals, saves pocket change, all to keep a fragile balance from collapsing. Tonight, he is tired, hungry, and carrying nothing but this $5 bill. Yet in this moment, this exact, ordinary-looking midnight, everything is about to tilt. A man appears near the ticket machines. Older, rain clinging to his coat, holding the hand of a small girl. The child presses a worn stuffed bear to her chest. The man pats down his pockets, once, twice, growing frantic. His voice is quiet, but carries. "I had it. I swear I had it." He checks his wallet, flips through cards, but no cash appears. The girl tugs at his sleeve, whispering, "Daddy, I'm cold." He kneels, whispers something back, then rises with a heavy exhale. Daniel watches. His pulse picks up. $5. That's what the man is short. Exactly what Daniel has left. He knows what giving it away would mean. No bus ride, no bread, a long walk home through rain. But he also knows what refusing would mean. A child sleeping on a plastic bench, shivering under fluorescent lights. Around him, people look away, pretend not to hear. The cashier checks her nails. Security glances at the clock. The same co-workers who laughed at Daniel earlier pass by without pause. It is easier to treat someone else's desperation as if it doesn't exist. Daniel's jaw tightens. This is the quiet cruelty He knows too well being treated as if unseen, invalid, unworthy of notice. And here it is happening to someone else, right in front of him. He reaches into his pocket, fingers close on the last $5 bill. He feels the weight of every mile he'll have to walk, every hour of sleep he'll lose. He sees his grandmother's face when he comes home soaked and empty-handed. Then he sees the girl again, pressing the stuffed bear tighter, eyes wet, lip trembling. The choice is clear before he can talk himself out of it. "Here," Daniel says, stepping forward. His voice is steady but quiet. He holds out the bill. The man looks at him, startled. The girl blinks, clutching her father's hand. "You don't have to." "It's fine," Daniel interrupts. No warmth in his tone, just a simple decision made. Cold, sharp, final. He presses the bill into the man's hand. "Get her home." For a moment, silence. Then the man nods, eyes searching Daniel's face as though he sees more than just a boy with worn shoes. He murmurs thanks. The girl whispers it too, voice thin. Daniel steps back, hands empty. He doesn't wait for gratitude. He doesn't wait at all. He turns, walks toward the terminal doors. Rain slams the pavement outside. He pulls his jacket tighter and steps into it. What Daniel doesn't realize is that someone else noticed not just the girl, not just her father, someone who had been watching quietly, someone who would remember his name. You may have had a moment like this, when you gave something away you couldn't afford to lose. If you have, I'd like to hear it. Share what you went through. Maybe others listening will see themselves in your words. Daniel walks into the night, the city lights blurred by rain. His sneakers soak through in minutes, each step heavier than the last. He keeps walking anyway. He doesn't see the pair of eyes following him from across the terminal, noting every detail. And if stories like this reach you, if they remind you that small choices still matter in a world quick to look away, stay close. I keep telling them here, and I'd want you to be part of them. The clock above the empty terminal strikes past 12:30. Daniel's figure disappears into the wet streets. A boy with nothing left in his pocket, carrying only the weight of his choice. And though he can't know it yet, that single decision has already placed his name on something far larger than he's ever dared to imagine. Morning comes gray and heavy. The city hasn't dried from the storm, and neither has Daniel. His sneakers are still damp when he slides them on, the fabric stiff with rainwater. He doesn't bother tying them all the way. They'll loosen soon enough on the walk. The apartment he calls home is a third-floor unit in a building that once promised better days. The hallway smells of bleach and mildew. Wallpaper peels at the corners. Doors slam too hard because hinges haven't been fixed in years. Inside their small unit, everything is worn but spotless. His grandmother insists on that. "Being poor doesn't mean you live dirty," she says. She is already awake when Daniel enters the kitchen. Thin shoulders wrapped in a sweater, she stirs instant oatmeal with hands that tremble slightly. "You're late coming home last night," she says. Daniel shrugs, drops his backpack onto a chair. "Missed the bus." She doesn't ask why. She doesn't mention the way he looks thinner every week, or the fact that he left his last good jacket hanging by the door months ago and now only wears the faded one. She just nods and sets a chipped bowl in front of him. The oatmeal is plain, almost tasteless, but warm. He eats quickly. Every spoonful reminds him that the $5 he gave away could have bought bread or milk or fruit. He pushes the thought down. His grandmother catches the look anyway. "Don't go skipping meals, Daniel. You're still growing." He smiles faintly, though his stomach is already tightening with hunger again. "I'll be fine, Grandma. School begins 2 bus rides away." Today, with no money, Daniel walks. He cuts through alleys, slick with puddles, past storefronts still closed. Cars splash water against the curb. The walk takes an hour and leaves him damp, but he arrives on time. He always does. Roosevelt High is a brick building that hasn't seen a fresh coat of paint in years. Windows stick when pushed. Lockers refuse to close. Inside, students gather in noisy clusters, trading stories, laughing, shoving. Daniel moves past them unnoticed, another shadow in the hallway. In English class, he sits at the back. He's the one teachers rely on to hand in clean essays, to answer questions no one else studied for. Yet, recognition rarely comes. When a group project is praised, credit goes to the louder voices. When something goes wrong, eyes drift toward him as the easy scapegoat. At lunch, the cafeteria smells of grease and salt. Students line up for hot meals. Daniel unwraps 2 slices of bread with peanut butter, packed from home. He eats alone, flipping through a borrowed textbook. A group nearby bursts into laughter. One of them whispers loudly enough, "Look, the janitor's kid brought his gourmet lunch again." The table shakes with chuckles. Daniel doesn't look up. He keeps chewing, slow, steady. The bread sticks to the roof of his mouth. He swallows hard, more from pride than hunger. Teachers know his grades are perfect. They know he tutors others at lunch, sometimes for free. Mrs. Harris once told him he should apply for scholarships. He nodded politely. He knows what scholarships mean. Essays, fees, paperwork. Things he doesn't have time or money to chase. After school, he works again. The gas station smells of fuel and old coffee. Customers barely meet his eyes. Some bark orders for cigarettes or lotto tickets. His boss, tired but fair, appreciates him. But even here, Daniel is the kid who does the jobs no one else wants, taking out heavy trash bags, scrubbing restrooms, mopping floors. He does it without complaint. He needs the hours. By the time his shift ends, the sky is dark again. He counts coins in his pocket, a handful of change, not enough for the bus. So he walks, past bright storefronts, where families eat dinner together, past apartments with warm windows, past silence, where he hears his own footsteps echo too loudly. At home, his grandmother sits in her chair, the oxygen machine humming beside her. She hides the pain, but Daniel sees it in the way she presses her hand against her ribs. "How was work, baby?" she asks. "Fine." He doesn't mention the customers who ignored him, the boys who laughed, the walk home. He kneels to rub her feet gently, the way she used to rub his when he was small. She closes her eyes, relief flickering across her face. On the table sits a pile of unopened letters, bills stacked neatly. He doesn't ask about them. She doesn't explain. Some conversations are too heavy for night. Instead, they watch the small television together. The news flashes images of other people's lives, winners of awards, families celebrating, communities thriving. Daniel sits quietly, hands clasped. He feels the distance between their world and his like a locked gate. But in the silence, something else grows. He doesn't let bitterness take root. He dreams, quietly, about change, about studying business, maybe one day starting something that could lift people like his grandmother out of this cycle. He imagines a community center where kids don't eat alone, where families don't have to choose between medicine and food. Dreams cost nothing, but they weigh heavy. And still, he keeps them. You might understand what it's like to carry more than people see, to feel invisible in hallways, to eat quietly while others laugh, to walk miles while everyone else rides. If you've ever been there, you know how unfair it feels, and maybe you know how it shapes you. Daniel doesn't realize yet that someone else has noticed. Someone has been asking questions about the boy who tutors classmates for free, who works long shifts without complaint, who helps neighbors carry groceries upstairs. Someone who will test just how far Daniel's character stretches when the cost is real. The storm clears by dawn, leaving streets slick and shining under weak sunlight. Daniel wakes with his clothes still damp from the night before. His sneakers are stiff, soles peeling further at the edges. He rubs his eyes. pulls on the same jacket, and heads out before his grandmother stirs. School feels heavier today. He walks the long route on sore legs, every step reminding him of the miles trudged through rain. By the time he pushes through the front doors of Roosevelt High, students are already buzzing in the halls. He slips into the flow, unnoticed, but something feels different. In first period, his English teacher pauses after handing back essays. "Daniel, can I see you for a moment?" Her tone is even, but her eyes search his face. "Did someone ask you about your grades recently? I got a strange call this morning. Someone wanted to know more about you. Not just academics, your work habits, your plans." Daniel frowns. "Who?" She shakes her head. "No name, just questions, very specific questions." She taps the desk with her pen, watching him. "If you know anything, tell me." People don't usually call schools asking if a boy is dependable. He nods slowly. "I don't know, ma'am." And he means it. At lunch, while he eats his peanut butter sandwich in the corner, two classmates walk by. "That kid Brooks," one says, not bothering to lower his voice. "Someone asked me yesterday if he really works at that gas station all the time. Like, who even cares?" They laugh and move on. Daniel lowers his eyes, chewing slowly, questions pressing against his chest. By late afternoon, the whispers have spread. In math class, another teacher asks casually, "Daniel, someone was inquiring about you. Community member maybe. They wanted to know if you've ever been in trouble." She smiles faintly. "I told them no. You're one of the good ones." But Daniel's stomach knots. Why would strangers be asking about him? He has no relatives with money. No reason for anyone to notice. After school, he heads to his shift at the gas station. The owner, a stout man with tired eyes, greets him at the counter. "Kid, a guy came in earlier. Drove up in a black sedan, asked about you by name. Wanted to know if you're reliable, if you ever cut corners. Said he'd been observing you." Daniel freezes. "What did you tell him?" "I told him you're the hardest worker I've got." "But listen, who are you mixed up with?" "I'm not," Daniel says quickly. And he isn't. The boss studies him for a moment longer, then shakes his head. "Well, whoever it is, they've got deep pockets. Not the kind of folks who wander in here by mistake." That night, Daniel walks home again. Coins in his pocket rattling faintly. The sky is clear, but the air is sharp, each breath biting. He passes lit windows where families eat dinner, laughter spilling out. He presses his hands deeper into his jacket. At home, his grandmother notices immediately. "You're quiet tonight. Just tired." He sets down his backpack. She tilts her head, sharp eyes catching what he hides. "Someone said something." Daniel hesitates, then tells her about the calls, the questions, the man in the sedan. Her brow furrows. "Did he say his name?" "No." She leans back slowly. People don't ask those kinds of questions unless they already know the answers. "Be careful, Daniel. Not every interest is kind." He nods, though inside confusion stirs stronger than fear. He lies awake later, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night before. The man at the terminal. The little girl's eyes. The "thank you" whispered in the noise. The expensive wristwatch glinting under fluorescent light. The briefcase with the gold crest. Words that didn't fit someone begging for $5. Something about it all doesn't add up. He doesn't know it yet. But by morning, the truth will no longer be whispered. It will be waiting for him, face to face. The next morning begins like any other. Daniel drags himself through the school gates, backpack hanging low, shoes leaving faint marks of dried mud along the floor. He tries to blend in, to move unnoticed as he always does. But today the hallway is different. Heads turn. Conversations stop as he passes. Brooks, principal's office. The announcement crackles through the intercom. His stomach sinks. In all his years here, his name has never been called like that. Not once. He pushes through the quiet hall toward the office door. Behind the glass, he sees Principal Myers, usually calm, now sitting upright, voice low as he speaks to two visitors seated across from him. Daniel slows, heart thumping. He recognizes them instantly. The man from the terminal. The little girl, now in a neat dress, sitting quietly beside him. And next to her, a woman polished, confident, holding a leather portfolio marked with that same gold crest. The secretary stands. "They're waiting for you," she adds, gently. "Your grandmother has been called. She's on her way." Inside, the atmosphere shifts. The man no longer looks like a stranded traveler. His posture is commanding, suit crisp, voice measured with authority. "Mr. Brooks," he says, standing to extend a hand. "It's good to see you again." Daniel stares. You're not—" "My name is Richard Hale," the man interrupts, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Chief Executive Officer of the Hale Foundation." He gestures to the woman. "This is my associate, Claire." The words hit harder than he expects. CEO, foundation, power, wealth. None of it matches the man who begged for $5. Daniel's mouth goes dry. "You lied to me. We tested you," Richard corrects. Tone clipped, precise. "There's a difference. We needed to know what you would do when no one was watching, when the cost was real." He nods toward the window. "For what it's worth, our security team was stationed within sight the entire time. The child was never at risk." Claire slides the portfolio across the principal's desk. The leather opens to reveal documents, contracts, and architectural blueprints. Daniel's name appears on the first page in bold print. Before anyone discusses details, the office door opens and his grandmother steps in, breathless. Principal Myers rises. "Mrs. Brooks, thank you for coming. We'll proceed with you here." She sits beside Daniel, her hand finding his. "What is this?" Daniel asks, voice tight. "Opportunity," Richard answers simply. "A full scholarship, living expenses, mentorship. But more than that," he taps the blueprints. "A youth development center. Here, in this community. Funded entirely by us. Directed by you. The Brooks Community Development Center, if you accept." Daniel's chest tightens. His hands curl into fists. Yesterday he gave away $5. Today someone is offering millions in his name. It doesn't make sense. "Why me?" His voice is low, almost bitter. "Because transformation doesn't begin with money," Richard replies. His eyes lock onto Daniel's. "It begins with character. We've studied this city for months. We heard your name again and again. The boy who tutors classmates without asking for pay. The boy who helps neighbors carry groceries. The boy who works until dawn to keep his grandmother safe. And then, at the terminal, you gave away what little you had. Not for recognition, not for reward. Simply because it was right." The principal clears his throat. "Daniel, I've worked here 30 years. No one has ever walked into this office with an offer like this." Daniel shakes his head. His voice hardens. "But you pretended to be broke. You let your kid stand there like she was freezing. You let me believe." Richard raises a hand, sharp, controlled. "I let you believe the truth of the test. That is all that mattered. Your choice was real." The air in the office is cold, heavy. Daniel feels every eye on him. He doesn't know whether to be furious or grateful. His grandmother's unpaid bills flash in his mind. The long walks home. The cafeteria laughter. All of it balanced against the impossible stack of papers before him. Claire closes the portfolio gently. "This is yours if you want it. But understand this isn't charity. This is partnership. We don't invest in talent without proof of integrity. You proved yours. Richard slides a card across the desk. Heavy stock, gold embossed. His name and title gleam under the light. Daniel doesn't pick it up. Not yet. His pulse hammers. The world feels off balance, spinning too fast. Richard's voice cuts through. Cold, sharp, final. Think carefully, Daniel. A single act of kindness has already rewritten how we see you. The question is whether you're ready to accept what comes next. The room falls silent. Papers rest on the desk. His name printed across them in black and white. He feels the weight of eyes, of expectation, of the future, suddenly pressing down on him. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Brooks realizes he is no longer invisible. Months pass, and the world around Daniel begins to change in ways he never imagined. At first, it feels unreal. A scholarship letter arrives with his name on it, stamped and signed. The envelope is heavier than anything he has ever held. Inside, numbers he never thought possible are written down as if they were nothing. Tuition covered, housing secured, a living stipend. His grandmother cries when she reads it aloud. Daniel just stares, numb, trying to accept that his life has tilted this sharply. Construction begins on the vacant lot by the river, where broken concrete and weeds once stood. Daniel walks by after school, watching workers in hard hats carry beams, pour foundations, raise steel. A sign is posted on the chain-link fence, future home of the Brooks Community Development Center. His name, bold and permanent. People in the neighborhood pause when they see it, whispering, some in disbelief, some in awe. For years, the space was nothing but rot. Now it is becoming something built on his choice. At school, the laughter stops. The boys who once mocked his peanut butter sandwiches now nod politely in the hallway. Teachers greet him with respect that feels strange at first. He is still the same Daniel, wearing the same worn shoes, but the way people look at him is no longer dismissive. The scholarship takes him to State University. He studies nonprofit management and business administration, walking across a campus he once only saw in brochures. At night, he still works part-time, though not because he has to anymore. It grounds him, reminds him who he island. Every break from school, he returns to the construction site, now rising into glass and steel. The foundation sends progress reports, but Daniel prefers to see it himself. Workers wave when they recognize him, calling out, "This is yours, kid." He shakes his head. It's for all of us. His grandmother's health improves too. Medication that once seemed out of reach is now delivered regularly. She smiles more often, her voice stronger. On Sundays, she sits on the porch, pointing to the distant cranes and saying, "You did that, Daniel." He always answers the same, "We did." The center opens 15 months later. The ribbon cutting draws a crowd larger than he thought possible. News cameras flash, neighbors gather. Children tug their parents forward to get closer. The building gleams, with wide glass doors and clean lines. Inside, rooms buzz with possibility. A medical clinic, ready to serve families. Computer labs, with rows of new equipment. Training spaces where people can learn skills that lead to real jobs. Daniel stands at the front, scissors in hand. Richard, Hale, and Claire stand back, letting him take the spotlight. His grandmother sits in the front row, oxygen tank no longer at her side, dressed in her best blouse. Tears glisten in her eyes as she watches her grandson prepare to cut the ribbon. Before he does, Daniel speaks. His voice is steady, though the weight of the moment presses on his chest. "This isn't about me," he says. "It's about every kid who walked home in the rain because they didn't have fare. Every parent who had to choose between medicine and food. Every person who was made to feel invisible. We deserve better. And now, together, we're building it." The crowd erupts in applause. The ribbon falls. The Brooks Community Development Center is open. From that day forward, transformation spreads. The clinic treats patients who once avoided doctors because of cost. Children flood the computer labs, learning skills their parents never had. Adults line up for job training programs, and within months, several find employment that changes their families' lives. Small businesses sprout around the neighborhood, serving the growing energy of a community finally given resources. Reporters call it the Brooks Effect. Headlines speak of a neighborhood reborn, of hope returning. But for Daniel, it's quieter than that. It's in the smile of a boy holding a new library card. It's in the relief of a mother leaving the clinic with medicine she can afford. It's in his grandmother's laugh as she watches children play outside the center's courtyard. Through it all, Daniel remains steady. He doesn't forget the nights of hunger, the laughter at his expense, the weight of invisibility. Those memories keep him sharp, keep him grounded. He knows success can change how others see him, but it shouldn't change who he island. Sometimes, walking through the halls of the center, he catches sight of his name on the plaque near the entrance, founded in partnership with the Hale Foundation, dedicated to Daniel Brooks for one act of kindness. The words feel surreal, but also heavy with responsibility. He knows it wasn't just one act. It was every small choice before that night, every decision to help when no one noticed. The $5 was only the moment others finally saw what he already lived. Years will pass, and the center will continue to grow. Programs will expand, more families will benefit, and Daniel will carry the legacy forward. But at the heart of it, the story will always circle back to a boy in soaked shoes, standing in a terminal, holding his last bill, and deciding to give it away. 2 years later, the center hums with life. Every floor is alive with voices. Children laughing in the library, adults practicing trade skills in the workshop, patients lining up at the clinic. The once abandoned lot by the river is now the beating heart of the community. Daniel, now 20, walks the halls as its director. He has grown taller, more confident, but the quiet weight in his eyes is the same. On his desk sit photos that tell the story. His grandmother cutting the ribbon at the opening, the first graduating class of the culinary program, neighbors smiling as they receive new job certificates. Success fills the air. Yet Daniel never forgets the night it all began. One cold evening, after a long day of meetings, Daniel leaves the center and heads toward the bus station. The fluorescent lights buzz, just as they did years ago. Travelers shuffle past, shoulders hunched against the chill. He pauses when he hears a familiar sound, the soft, urgent voice of a child. At the ticket counter, a young boy clutches his mother's hand. The woman rifles through her purse, panic rising in her eyes. I had it. I swear I had enough. She counts coins, comes up short. The boy tugs her sleeve, whispering, "We'll miss it." The cashier's voice is firm. Policy. No exceptions. The scene slices through Daniel like a memory. The soaked jacket. The last $5 bill. The decision that changed everything. He steps forward, pulling a bill from his wallet. His tone is calm, steady. Here. Take it. The woman blinks, startled. We can't. You can, Daniel answers, placing the money on the counter. Get him home. The boy looks up at him, wide-eyed, clutching his mother's hand. It's the same look Daniel once saw in another child's face. He feels the echo, sharp and clear. As the mother thanks him quietly, Daniel doesn't linger. He turns to leave, but pauses just long enough to pull a card from his pocket. Simple, white, with the center's logo. On the back, he writes the boy's name carefully. He hands it over with a small nod. If you need help beyond tonight, come here. There's a place for you. Walking away, Daniel feels the weight of the moment settle, not heavy, but steady. This is the cycle he now carries forward. Kindness passed on, multiplied, never forgotten. He thinks of Richard Hale's words. Character is rarer than diamonds. Back then, those words felt distant, spoken from a world beyond his reach. Now, living them, Daniel understands. Transformation isn't a miracle delivered overnight. It is a choice repeated, again and again, until it builds something lasting. The city streets glow with new energy. Where abandoned shops once stood, small businesses thrive. Families gather in the courtyard of the center. Children play safely under the lights. Crime has dropped, hope has risen, and people talk about the future with confidence. All because of one act that cost a boy everything and gave back more than he could ever imagine. If you've ever lived a moment like Daniel's, when you had nothing but gave anyway, you know how powerful it can be. Share that story here. Others might see themselves in your words, and maybe your memory will inspire someone facing the same choice tonight. And if stories like this speak to you, if they remind you that kindness still matters, that one small act can ripple further than you see, stay close. This space is where those stories live, where they're remembered, and where they grow. Daniel Brooks walks home under the glow of streetlights, his name etched on a building that serves thousands. But in his mind, he isn't thinking about the cameras or the headlines. He's thinking about the boy at the counter, the look in his eyes, and the knowledge that the cycle has begun again. Because transformation isn't a single event, it's a choice. One act of kindness, multiplied until it changes everything.